So anyway, thank you all for coming to hear Katharine Montstream's talk. My name's Rob. I'm actually the director of Frog Hollow, and I just wanted to basically introduce Katharine, but also while I have your attention for a few seconds, talk about our 37 for Frog Hollow campaign that we're doing. It's a fundraiser as a nonprofit that works with artists from across the state of Vermont. We always try and bring intriguing and exciting programming to all of Vermont. Right now we've got a tour that's actually utilizing Vermont libraries as a venue for Peter Miller's new book, Lifetime of Vermont People. So we travel the state to try and bring programming to all areas of Vermont. But that also needs support and assistance, and so we do a program right now where we're asking 1,300 of our friends and supporters, both past and present, to step up and donate $37 to help our efforts statewide. So if you're so intrigued, if you're enjoying this evening, if you're enjoying what we're doing, if you support Frog Hollow, then please consider supporting it in this manner. With that said, I'd like to introduce Katharine Montstream, a Burlington-based painter who's just doing remarkable things. So,
Thank you, Rob. I would echo that. Thank you for coming. I know most of you, so most of you are going to be like, oh, I know all this. But I really appreciate you all coming out. It's been 25 years now since I started as, being a professional painter and selling my work, and that seems like a long time. And we hear a lot of interesting things in the studio over the years. And not too long ago, my husband was down working the studio and said a woman came in and she was looking around, really taking her time. And she finally poked her head around the corner and said, "Is the artist still living?" And he paused and he goes, "Well, she was when I left this morning." And so it kind of made me laugh because, yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Not everybody, it might seem like, I think people think I'm going to be a lot older, and it's been kind of funny to hear the comments over the years and what people bring to the studio, and you hear a lot of great stuff. So this show was about really the nighttime in Burlington, and I think I've done a lot of cityscapes over the years, but I haven't really focused on just like the nocturne. And I think it just offers a lot, and there's just, the lighting is so amazing at night if you aren't afraid of it. And I think growing up I was always really afraid of the dark, and I would do anything not to be in it. I had to turn my light out in my room with a string and walk 4 steps to my bed. Well, that was just terrifying. So it was the 60s, so I tied all my knee socks together to the string. I could actually get in bed with about 8 knee socks and pull the string and not have to be in the dark. So I really avoided it. So this is really like kind of empowering. It's like, let's see what happens and look around at the city in the after hours. And it was a good experience to kind of, I love the monochromatic feel that you get to pieces. You don't have, there's only maybe 1 or 2 colors like in that piece. And, it's just about gradations of the same color, getting lighter and lighter. And it was very exciting to explore that and just kind of see what would happen with not putting a lot of color in, because I know traditionally people one of the things I hear a lot is they like the colors. So this was kind of a really good experiment for me to do. So I went camping recently in August in the full moon, and I was, what do you need when you go camping? Well, there's some really basic things, and one thing you really need is a flashlight. It's just, everybody has to bring a flashlight when you camp. And I never used it the whole 3 nights because the moon was so beautiful, and it just kept reminding me that the show was coming, and looking at the shadows at night and never needing really anything at all. Walking around at night, it was so bright. So I think just taking that experience and bringing it back into these paintings and developing them was very enjoyable and really interesting to see what would happen from different angles of the city. Oak Ledge Park is one of my favorite places to swim, and so I looked, looking back at the city, looking north, and then what I've, sort of the traditional view that I've done many times over the years, looking down from a little bit near UVM. and then being at the water looking back. So it was a really exciting experiment to kind of do that. A lot of people want to know how I started. It's been 25 years. I never thought I would be an artist. Like, who gets to be an artist and make a living? It doesn't seem like that is really possible, so I never really explored it in college. Thought, I might as well get a real job someday. I'll be a sociologist, or I'll be a social worker. I don't know. I just thought that I would have to get a job that wouldn't be involved in art. But that all changed when I made handmade thank you notes for wedding cards. And everybody was like, you should try to sell these. And I was like, oh, stop. No, get out of here. I'm not going to sell them. But enough people kept giving me the feedback, I thought, you know what? Maybe I will try to sell them. So I got my best, images, and I just basically walked on Church Street and said, I have these little cards. Would you want to look at them and see if it'd be something you'd like to sell? And they were kind of like, what do you got? So that was an interesting experiment, and I brought a few samples. They were really simple. They were just little watercolors that I made on big sheets of paper. The paper was like this, and I would grit it off with masking tape, and I'd paint 12 pigs, 12 full moons, 12 camel's hump, and I'd just do that, and then tear off the tape, shred them down, glue them. We were like a factory. We glued them and then stamped them, and then we'd ship them out. And before I knew it, we were making like a lot of cards, and I quit my day job. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. So this was a great experiment, and what it did is it taught me shapes. Like I learned how to make a tulip really easily, and I remember my instructor saying, how are you making a daffodil like that so quickly? And I think because I'd already made 500 of them in the last 2 months. So this went on for 2 years, and I realized as I tore open a box of envelopes, it's like this big box, I had to order it, and I looked at the top label and I went, oh my God, there's 5,000 envelopes in this box. And I realized when I finished selling that box of envelopes, I had sold over 5,000 and made over 5,000 handmade cards in 2 years. And it just sort of all hit me. Like I was making like 210 cards a day on a good day. If I got up and really focused, I could make that many. And then people were buying them like crazy. And so we had stores all over New England. They were selling for $3. I was selling them to the store for $1.50, and they cost me about 10 cents. So I was like, well, I'm in business. This is great. And I'm painting. I have a paintbrush in my hand. Like no one's telling me what to do. And I was just thrilled. I was like, this is great. But after 2 years, when you got to like 4,999 camel's hump, I was like, all right, that's it. I can't really grow as an artist or as a business person. There's a place where you just you hit the wall. And we went to the printers and I said, all right, what happens if we print these? Let's bring them to the printers. And we took our best images and started to print them, and they were half the price then and twice the size. So a lot of people were sad because they weren't handmade anymore, but that's how we started our business. And so from there it was like, we had to get a rep. It's like a rep, oh my gosh. So they had to see the cards, and they start peddling them in their sack, and then pretty soon they need more cards. So this became like this kind of evolution of this greeting card business that I was sort of like, wow, this isn't what I planned, but it worked. And then one day I had my cards with me at a dentist appointment, and a woman was like over my shoulder, and she's like, can I see those? I was like, yeah, sure. Can you make these bigger? Oh my God, like, yeah, I mean like a painting, like a whole painting bigger? Yeah, I'm the interior decorator of the new Bank of Vermont, and we'd love to see this kind of work in the lobby. Yes, I was just like yes, 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 thinking I haven't painted something bigger than this in 2 years, but I will figure it out. So that was a wonderful opportunity, and I painted all the paintings in the lobby of which is now, I don't know what it's called now, right down here on the corner, and they were wonderful, and I got to go to this big opening, and it was like, oh wow, I have paintings. And after that, I had my first show at the Daily Planet, and that was probably 1989, and I don't know, people were buying them, and I didn't have many left at the end, and I was just scratching my head going, I don't know what I'm doing, but people like it, and I just need to kind of ride that wave and not try to overthink it, because I don't think I'm particularly talented, but what I'm doing is accessible, and people are liking it enough that they're not just saying, I love what you're doing, they're wanting to write a check and making sure that they got the painting. So I just was like, okay, well, this is exciting. Larry Goldsmith was my teacher. If any of you know the esteemed watercolorist, the Zen watercolorist, he was an older gentleman from Fairfax who lived in Monhegan in the summer, and he wrote a wonderful book called Watercolors Bold and Free. Thank God I met him, because if I hadn't, I don't know what I'd be doing today, but I can't imagine I'd be painting. Without his instruction, I would be ripping out pictures of magazines and copying every blade of grass and every little horsehair. I just didn't know what else to do, and he's a very expressive painter, wet on wet, and that was like, I totally understood what he was teaching, and he saw that I was getting it. And so that was 17 years. He was sort of my mentor and teacher. So I'm really grateful for all he taught me, and when I occasionally teach, I like to really just try to channel what he shared with me, but a really expressive way to paint, and that was just huge for me. So it was about the same time I joined Frog Hollow. I think I joined Frog Hollow about 20 years ago. And I got juried in. I was really nervous, but they did accept me. So I'm totally grateful for this relationship too. It's been great. It's been a good long while. Of course, I wasn't always in my 20s. I was in kindergarten once. And for all of you with children, grandchildren, anyone you think, you see their work in kindergarten and you go, yep, that's going to be an artist, right? That wasn't me. I didn't put a lot of effort into it. This is my tree in kindergarten. So for any of you looking at your children's art, fear not if it looks like it's done a little quickly. My mom kept everything, and I have a huge collection of my early art, and this is hilarious. And it's this Kat and Katharine. I mean, you can tell I'm definitely not, I mean, look at my A. I'm really young here, and I just think that is, you know, I expected to look through my art box and be impressed, and I was like, wow. I must have been right before recess or something, because I was in a hurry. School was hard. I wasn't good at math. I wasn't good at reading. I was behind in writing, and I was the worst at kickball. So I did get better at art, and so thank God, because that's the one thing in school I did I got a little better in first grade. First grade through high school, that was sort of my thing. I was, you know, kids might have made fun of me, or I was a little bit different, or super shy, but when it came to art class, they kind of came around and looked, and it was a really nice thing. I was so grateful, and thank God my parents saw that and sent me to all these great private classes at the Wadsworth Athenaeum in Hartford. Yes! And I had a great teacher, Miss Pescatello, and she was like one of Charlie's angels. She was always big platform shoes, crazy hair, and she drove a little VW Bug, and she was just my idol. And I was so glad. She took us out plein air painting all the time, and I have all those paintings. It's just so neat. So very grateful that my parents didn't push what I wasn't good at and saw what I was good at and were really nurturing. So they're very proud today, and I'm really glad that they saw that and didn't just get me tons of tutors for the stuff I was hating. So could have used a little help in kickball. I wish they'd kind of taken me in the yard and helped me with that, but you know, it's all okay. In the 25 years, I would say I really haven't had like what you think of as like the typical struggle for artists, the starving artist, and this huge struggle. I've been very, very lucky. But there has been a few times where I've had a little bit of pause, and it was a few years ago. I was just having a slump, and I couldn't make myself paint. I didn't have any shows coming up, and I don't know, I just was sort of riding the wave of the greeting cards and the prints and throwing a few new paintings in once in a while, but it was nothing that was really inspiring, and I was doing fine, but I just wasn't wanting to get in there and find it, you know, that place where you're lost in your work and you don't know what time it was, or I just wasn't finding that. And so I had a lot of commissions, and I may or may not have been complaining about it, and my daughter, who was a teenager at the time, just is listening to me complain, and she's in the car with me. Finally, she looks at me and she goes, "Mom, you color for a living." I was like, yeah, you're right. I should just shut up, do my work, and not complain because this is awesome. But I was still having trouble like jump starting. I couldn't quite get myself into the studio and get creative. So my kids are the older two are pretty strong-willed and can be a little demanding at times. And my son finally got me on the computer. He's like, get off the computer. What are you doing? Let's go. He was like 18. He's like, let's go. I'm like, what? Where are we going? He's like, you're going to go paint. You're going to go in your studio. I'm like, no, I'm not. He goes, yeah, you are. You're going. And I'm like, stop it. I'm like giggling nervously, like, cut it out. I don't want to paint. Yeah, too bad. Let's go. Come on. And he's like standing over me, you know, he's like almost 6 feet, and like I'm like, fine, shut up, okay, I'm going. So I stand in my studio, all awkward, and he's like, sit down. Well, I don't want to. Come on, no, you sit down. And I'm like, oh. He's really trying to help me. So I said, where's your paints? They're over there. Get them. Fine. And then he's like, no, and he goes, I'm gonna get a stool. And he got a stool and he sat there. He goes, no, paint. And I'm like, stop it. He goes, no, just do it. You know what to do. And I'm like, okay. And I just started painting, and it was like this amazing time of like, yeah, someone actually needed to kick me in the pants and go, do this. And it was my kid. Of course, I didn't want to disappoint him, and he could see that I was like struggling and not making it happen, and yet he knew I could, and I just didn't want to do it. And I always remember that painting. I liked it, and I was like, all right, thanks, Tor, you know, and you know, it was good. They're definitely, you know, it's interesting having children and what their influence is, and then after that, I sort of was like, I probably should book a show. That would really be useful. And then Mark maybe had something to do with the Interval show that was a couple of years ago, and that sort of got me going again because I started looking at something thematic that you could take like as a big, you know, like, okay, let's look at the Interval. Let's look at it at different times of the day. And really kind of explore some different size paintings, and that was a really, really helpful exhibit. And then last year I had the Paris exhibit after I went to Paris with the family, and that was really exciting. And then this year there's this show, which is like, you know, been really exciting it's fun to see something different, to force your eye to see something different that you maybe haven't explored before. So it's all been really good. So I have a lot to be really thankful for and a lot to celebrate. I think with this 25th year, I also explored something really different, which was the interior of the Moran plant. And maybe some of you have seen the exhibit, but I got in there and I was just pretty overwhelmed with the texture and the grittiness of this kind of defunct electric plant. And it wasn't anything I expected to want to paint, but there was just something about it that was so challenging. I really felt like it was really clear to me that I needed to paint that. So with these two shows coming together, I've been calling September Inside Out, inside the Moran and outside of Burlington. And it's just been kind of, they're really opposite each other, and yet they both are about Burlington and the things that I love. And that's just always great to be able to paint, you know, what inspires you, and, you know, and just to kind of get the chance to examine things a little bit closer. So I do love that. I think, does anybody have any questions? Or Rob, do you have any? I mean, I think you
could open it up to the people in the audience if you have any questions.
Yeah, because
we have a microphone over here that we should pass around if anyone wants to ask Katharine, but I think, yeah, the interactions are great.
Yeah, I said I wanted really hard questions, so I know Mima was crafting some, I'm pretty sure. What was that?
Question.
No, it's okay. And if you don't, it's okay. Mark.
That's a good one, just while she's thinking about that. You know, it's very unusual to find any artists, let alone in Vermont, that actually make a living selling their art. Mm-hmm. Typically, artists do other things to make a living and then do their art, and maybe they'll sell some, but it's sort of ad hoc, and it happens once in a great while. It's cause for celebration. Yeah. And I wonder if you could just address how you've managed to do that, because it isn't, the greeting cards is a more predictable phenomena that I think is easy to understand because it's sort of a commodity and it's repeatable, but art seems to be sort of quixotic. People buy it every now and then when the right person comes upon the right piece at the right time. Right. And in a place like Vermont where we don't have enough people to start a fire with, I wonder how you've managed to carve out a career for not just you, but for your whole family doing that. I find that
Right.
to be sort of a very interesting phenomenon, particularly doing it without gallery help for the most part.
Yeah, I also ask myself that a lot because it is, and I think there's a couple things. I think one thing is that when I first started my early shows, boy, a big painting was, I mean, it was big, it was like $600. I think I kept it really affordable in the beginning because I wanted, to me it was more important that the paintings got to homes than for me to get excited about a big price. So I feel like that was useful. And then after that, I feel like for some reason what I'm doing is accessible. Again, it's like I find a lot of people that only have bought prints will buy their first painting. It might be mine. And it's just not that sophisticated. I think there's colors that people like, and I don't know, they're able to see the painting and find something that they really enjoy and want to have it. But I think it's a little unfair because I certainly see many, many, many extraordinarily talented artists in the state who maybe aren't selling as much, and I always feel like it's not, they're so good, and yet maybe they're not making a living. So I don't know that it's anything I've done specifically. I mean, I have worked hard, and I definitely try to keep it fresh and try to keep things, I have a really wide variety of price range, as you know, so a card is $3, a print is $150 or $300, and then original could be, you know, and I think that helps too. And I think a lot of people are focusing on their original work. It's hard when you only have things that are rather expensive. I also have Al. You know, I have a husband who works with me full time, and so he can do the card business and run that. So at the very least, the card company creates an income, but also it's like free marketing. You know, these cards are getting sent everywhere, and people see it and come to the website, come to the studio. So I think we've been very lucky that we've been able to have this little greeting card company that kind of announces us and gets our name out there. And but I know it's unusual, and I wish I had a really better answer. I do think I've been lucky. I think that I'm lucky that what I do appeals to people enough that they are willing to take part of their paycheck and give it to me. And you know, that part I can't explain. You know, it just has to be something they see, and it just makes them happy. And I have to just go, well, that's wonderful. I can't complain at all. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
You talked to me before about your painting becoming the act of picking a color, putting it on the brush,
Yeah.
and putting it on the canvas.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
I learned that at the Johnson Studio School because when you get sort of blocked and you're just overwhelmed and like you don't know what to do next, I can't remember his name. Jim was his first name. I'm sure you must know who he was. He unfortunately died a few years ago. But he talked about, he talked about using that palette, and basically what you're trying to do as a visual artist, if you're a painter, is there's paint on your palette, and there's blobs of colors, and you have this brush, and you've got to get it from there to up there. And it's like, how do you decide what colors? Well, don't worry. You have to get it up there, and it has to stay there. It can't fall off. It can't be running off onto the floor. And you can't just stand there and look at it all. You've got to mix something and put the mark on the canvas. Because if you don't, you're just procrastinating, and you're doing whatever it is that you're not supposed to be doing. When I think about that act of how many decisions I have to make for every painting, looking at just this piece of wax paper with these blobs of color and then this canvas, and where does that go? You know, I don't know. I just sort of try to follow this path, but it is amazing to think that's how I make my living, and how bizarre. You know, like here's this place, and you're trying to repeat it in a way that feels right to you. Edge of a hill, or the river bend, or the interior of the Moran plant, whether I'm using a brush or a side of a ruler and just dragging it down. It's like that interpretation is up to me, but when I think of the physicalness of just palette, brush, paper, yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
So you started your show by saying that you were really scared of the dark
Yeah.
when you were a kid. So is there is there a connection between that act of picking a color and putting it on a canvas and getting over a fear, like being scared of the dark?
See, that's the really hard question I was looking for. I think, like, you know, there's different kinds of fears, and I suppose it is the same, because if you get sort of stuck and you don't know what to do next, you start to get like, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I stink at this. Wow. And you do have like that kind of like panicking feeling, and then just having to like run away and want to go do something else. So I think it's similar. I don't pull the blankets over my head, so that part's a little different. You know, I was little, I was definitely, but it is, I think that fear is similar. It's a fear of the unknown, and you're looking at this canvas trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, and I don't know what to do. And I said, like with these Moran paintings, I have a sense about the direction I'm going because I have so much experience working with watercolors. I have a certain sense about how to do that, but with the Moran plant paintings, I just had no idea. I was finally like, I wish this was color by number and I could just, someone tell me what color goes where, because I don't know where to put the colors. And you know, you get sort of...
What's the medium for the Moran?
It's oil. And there's a couple watercolors too. But yeah, it definitely is, there is that sort of like feeling of like despair of like, I don't know what to do. And it's a pendulum, you know, it's like, oh my God, this is so out of control, I have no idea. And then you kind of come back and go, oh, wait a minute, I think I'm starting to get this. Oh no, it's good, you know, it's like, and you try to get it to like this, where you're like, okay, I'm almost there. And that's a great feeling when you get like right about there and you kind of know you're getting there.
Question.
Bima?
So could you talk a little bit about how you decide what medium to use for a project?
Right. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that some people will ask me, what do you like better, watercolors or oils? And I feel like they're so different. They remind me of my kids. You know, you don't love one more than the other, but they can be so different. One's a slob, and one's meticulous, and one's saving all his money, and one's spending it all. And they're just personalities, and you think, gosh, but you don't love one more than the other, and I feel like it's the same. I think that this show lent itself to watercolor. I just saw this, like, visualized, like, that kind of watery feeling of the lake and getting those sort of translucencies. And with the Moran plant, to me, it seems so clear that it would be oil because it's so textural. And I think that's what I was getting so excited about. You know, as Peter Owen said, when you look through the frame of your camera in the Moran plant, every section is an abstraction's dream. It's just like it's so like guttural, and just everything about it is just really abstract. And so I think the oil felt like the right choice then. Sometimes I have an idea, and sometimes I just it's so obvious I don't really think about it. I just go to that medium. So.
Are those the only two media that you generally use?
Yeah, I haven't used much else. I do use colored pencils a lot, and sometimes if you look closely, you can see like the lights on the top of those buildings are done in colored pencil. And for the Moran plant show, I used like the idea of the snap line that you use in construction, snap it and it leaves that ultramarine blue line. I did that with a big stick and a big blue colored pencil that was oil-based. So a lot of them, some of it's gotten covered up, but you can see that line. And so I really like a good oil-based colored pencil that kind of just sits on top of the watercolor or the oil, because it's just so vibrant. And but mostly, I think those are the only two.
You don't use acrylic or pastel at all?
I have acrylics. I haven't explored them enough to really understand them or figure out how they work. And pastel always I just get confused and I don't know what to do, and I don't get it. So someone would have to show me how to do pastel, and then in the meantime I'm right back at what I'm comfortable with. So, and also pastel, you have to have this big collection of pastels, and they're so beautiful, and you have to kind of keep them in the right boxes, and I don't know if I could do that. I look at my friends and they're just like, you know, it's like 8 shades of yellow. Well, I just want to squirt out yellow and add some white, and then a little bit of green or blue to mix it up. I don't know that I would want to be so. I don't see. It seems very what's the word? Yeah, more regimented than I am, and I think I like that kind of free form of.
We have to find you sloppy pastel.
Yeah, I need some really sloppy box and just, go. But then I can see it's hard to mix, so I don't know. I haven't had much luck, but I like to highlight some things with, even the sun, where was it? Yeah, this, I love it. This is, there, see? I do use pastel. That big line is just that nice, bright, you can do that kind of thing, but I don't do it in my art. Maybe I should try that sometime though. So, yeah.
I think when I see some of your work, and I haven't seen all of it, obviously, but the media that you use seems to be consistent with the kind of discovery that you show in your work, and also there's a delight in the way, I think, the way you portray things. It seems to me that that's coming through, and maybe that helps you transcend the fear. I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's totally.
But, when I look at things, they're people, I think, find pleasure and happiness, and as you said, they're kind of it encapsulates maybe some of the enjoyment that they have when they visit this area, or they've lived in here for a while and they've discovered Oak Ledge Park, or and you kind of, they walk by and I'll see sunset, and that kind of captures that. That's what
Right.
I've seen. So I don't know
Triggers
if
something
other
in their brain.
media
I don't know.
kind of, is too, just where it keeps you down a little bit too much. It's not as free. It's not what you were saying, or is it maybe a matter of just finding the right instructor and that works with that medium and.
Right. I'm not sure if I can answer that, but I think you're right about that people, like, they see something and they respond to it and it makes them feel happy, and I find that, I hear that a lot. So I think that is why people want to take it home, because they want to.
Is that your feeling? Do you kind of find a delight, besides the fact that you're expressing it in a way that's kind of, you've discovered something in the way in Moran. You discovered certain things, and now you're expressing that. But now I'm forgetting where I was going, but do you think that this helps kind of, transcend the fear and all, because you're expressing something you're delighted in?
Yeah, I think in the end I might be delighted. Certainly doing it isn't always that way. I mean,
All right.
painting Moran.
It's like the painter's block.
Yeah, painting the Moran paintings were the biggest brain squeezer I've ever had. I thought it was going to spontaneously combust because it was just so hard. I didn't know what I was doing, and I had no idea if I was on track or if they were just complete chaos. I just,
But you kind of felt the compulsion almost to do
yeah,
it.
but it is, exactly. So there is that drive and that energy that probably comes through in the end as they kind of came together, as these came together, that, going through it is kind of a struggle. Sometimes it's not always like, this is going great. A lot of times there's like this ebb and flow that's.
So that's part of the kind of self-discovery, though.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. It's just sometimes it's hard to work through, and you can see where many people might get discouraged and go, I'm not doing this anymore. But I think I've been doing it long enough that I get that I need to just kind of keep charging through, and that pause I had a couple of years ago, I probably shouldn't do that, because it's just like I just have to do the act of painting, of just shut up and get your brush and just start doing something, because something will happen, whether it's good or bad or incredible or the most terrible marks I've ever made. I've got to do it, and I think I know I just need to go through that process of doing it to kind of find that delight or that frustration, but you've got to find one of them so that you're moving forward.
And do you in fact try to paint every day?
I don't try to. I guess I would say yes, I try to, but that doesn't usually happen. It's probably, it goes in fits and starts where, like, if as an exhibit's, of course, coming close or I have a lot of work, I might be every day. And then there might be weeks, a couple here and there, where I really haven't been doing that. I've been working on the other part of the business. Or I'm painting the greeting cards for this year's Christmas card line, which is like, evergreens, cardinal sleds. It's like, I have to put on this whole different hat, and that's my husband has to bring me a lot of baked goods to get me to do that. So, flowers work, anything. So he's got to really motivate me. because that's hard. It's hard to like change gears, and I in the end I love our holiday line, but it's hard to kind of do that because it's constricting. It's not free. It's not watercolors bold and free. It's like, okay, what are we talking about here? Let's think about this. But that's his job, and so I'm enabling him to have this cool job of marketing this greeting cards and shipping and taking care of the reps. And so it's awesome that we can kind of create that together. So I need to just do it. Because you know what I want for Christmas this year? It's like, what? You know what you gave me a couple of years ago? Yeah, I remember that. I gave him the whole line of the next year's Christmas cards for Christmas. Like he opened it up and it was like 4 or 5, brand new, done. You never have to beg me, and there they were. And he was like, yes, because you have to do them about a year ahead. So he goes, I want that. I'm like, damn, that's hard. Can't I get you a tie or something? Or a bike? All right. So, yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming out and talking and answering all these questions.
My pleasure.
And I think that 25 years and you're still trying new things. The Moran plant is just a phenomenal show. This is an absolutely spectacular show. You're pushing yourself into new directions, and I think that's really admirable. And it's one of the things I really enjoy about you and your work and what you do. So thank you very much for everything.
Well, thank you.
And thank you guys. This will be on RETN, Channel 16, so thank you RETN for coming to film this. It will also be available on YouTube and on RETN's new website and a bunch of different
I think
places.
MTV, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a long list. It's
Like
but those are the highlights.
Yeah,
so yeah. But anyway, thank you.
And thank you for supporting all of my endeavors, not just what I do here. I appreciate that very much. He always says Frog Hollow supports the arts, not. And when I asked him maybe a year or so ago, I was like, how do you feel about me really pushing myself on this other exhibit, at the same time? And you were like, Katharine, we encourage artists to explore, and that's wonderful. And I was like, wow. It made me so happy that I'm part of Frog Hollow. So thank you.